Welcome to today's episode. We're diving into the career of pro golfer Myles Creighton. From his rise through the ranks of the PGA Tour Latin America to his standout performances on the KORN Ferry this past year, Myles has proven himself as a rising star in the world of golf. Stay tuned for a closer look at his journey, achievements, and what makes him a player to watch. I guess just leading it off, Myles, early life introduction into golf. What first sparked your interest? Was it family? Was it just picking up a club and hitting it well? What kind of got you into the game?
Yeah, I grew up in Canada, in Nova Scotia. So golf has grown a ton in Canada now, but not a hugely popular sport. In a small town where I grew up, there's one course, but just played all sports growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Hockey was kind of my main thing. I'm not sure the exact age I started. It was young, 6 or 7 probably. I was at a friend's house and went to a driving range. His dad was a golfer, and took us to a driving range, and I took a liking to it, like most sports I played. And there was actually a kid growing up in my hometown. It's like 2,000 people in my hometown, and
Mm-hmm.
he was really good at golf. He was really good at all sports, but he was on the national team, like Golf Canada, when he was like 14 or 15 years old, and he
Mm-hmm.
was 4 years older than me. So I just kind of looked up to him always growing up, and he was, the best athlete in the town, and took a liking to golf more so than other sports, and was obviously really good at. So he was great to me when I was a kid. I think about it now, and I would probably annoy him so much. When I was 10,
Right.
11, 12, and he was 16 years old. That's like a big difference, right,
Right.
in ages. But he was always really good to me, and we would go play. I mean, I would play like any kid growing up. I would play from, it was my babysitter basically growing up. Go to the golf
Yeah.
course in the summer and just play. I No driving range and like 4 holes on the putting green, but I would just play. Um, and yeah, just got into it that way.
Yeah. So would you, I guess, for our next question, would you consider him a mentor? And was there anybody else that kind of played a role in you progressing throughout college and pro golf?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I don't think if it was for him, I would have played golf at a serious level. But yeah, he was a huge mentor growing up and learned a ton from him. And pretty self-taught, just watching him play. And I think that is kind of the best way you can learn is, pushing yourself and playing with and against people who are better than you, and comparing your game to theirs. And um, yeah, he certainly got me into it and was like a big mentor. But along the way, things develop, and there's so many people,
Right.
along that path that are your mentor, and you pick pieces off of their game and stuff. And I live in Jupiter, Florida now, and play at a good club with a lot of pros.
Hmm.
So constantly just like learning from those guys, and trying to take parts of their game and kind of make it my own.
Right.
I think that's a huge part of, margins are thin, and, learning how other people do things, can certainly, be a benefit to your game.
Right. Is there any big money games going on whenever y'all are down there
It's
playing?
not as crazy. I mean, I'm sure there are people that do it, but, and certainly, I've played most of my career on tours that don't allow me to play big money games.
Right.
But yeah, I just think that even if you are playing, people are on different tours. So, if you're playing with a couple of tour guys, and they're playing with me who plays on the KORN Ferry, I feel like they kind of feel a little awkward wanting to say how much do you want to play
Right.
for, or naming a price. Um, but just enough to make you uncomfortable. I
Right.
say sometimes my buddies who are like 12 handicaps, I swear they play for more money, in money games than I do, but just enough to kind of make you uncomfortable, and make you care about it a little bit. And it's more
Right.
so just being competitive and wanting to beat
Yeah.
the other person. So
Making it kind of meaningful, if you will. You know,
yeah, exactly.
I guess making it like a tournament without having to be in a tournament. So,
Yeah, and it's more so just especially if you're playing against guys who maybe have better status than you or are further along in their career, you know, to beat them, that can, give you a little confidence and
Right.
uh, certainly help you, going into your next tournament or whatever it is you have next.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tournaments, was there anything, whether it was tournament wise or, you have to something click on the range one day that I guess was a defining moment in your career that made you think or believe in yourself that you can make it as a pro?
Um, there's been like a few steps like that along the way. Just kind of graduating from each level. I can't really recall like a time in junior golf when, um, I grew up in Nova Scotia, which there's not a ton of competition. There's good players certainly
Hmm.
growing up, and there still is, but as far as like competition wise, it'd be nothing like in the States, like you know in the Carolinas or Florida or Texas or California, stuff like that. But I was able to like win a lot growing up, and that got me to college and got me in a Division I program. But I'd say in college, I had real no intentions of playing professional. I still think about this a lot, but I really hadn't like thought about it, I guess.
Hmm.
My first couple years, it was always just get a scholarship to play in the States, being from
Hmm.
Canada. And then in when I was in college, I was okay. My freshman year and sophomore year was okay. And then I worked an internship in Northern Virginia the summer after my sophomore year, and it sucked. I hated it. And so I kind of, when I hardly played any golf that summer, and when I came back to school that year for my junior year, I probably focused a little bit more on the golf side of things and
Yep.
just competed a bit harder. And I kind of told myself that, if I could just be consistent and like compete to win tournaments on a regular basis or win tournaments in college,
Hmm.
um, that I would give it a chance. And then that I played well in the fall that year. And then in the spring, I won a couple times. And I don't think I finished outside the top four in the spring. I
Right.
played really well, like out of my tree that semester. And so that's kind of when that was probably a pretty big turning point for me and kind of thinking, maybe I could do this or, um, maybe I could give it a shot.
Hmm.
And then, played solid my senior year to where I was like, all right, let's give this a chance. And there's certainly been moments like as a pro too, um, where you makes you kind of start believing in yourself a little bit more.
Right.
Because that's a big jump. It's nowhere near anymore as big of a jump, I don't think, especially if you go to like a lot of these bigger schools or you're playing in big college tournaments. It's not as big of a jump, I don't think, because guys come out pretty ready to compete.
Right.
You see it now, like in pro golf with some of these guys, but you know, where I went to school, it was a pretty big jump to be
Right.
because I never even played against guys who went to, you know, guys that were competing for national championship. We never made a regional.
Right.
So that was a pretty big jump for me. But you kind of, as you go, you have those moments along the way, like I've had in my pro career that kind of push you along. And yeah, certainly a few defining moments, like as a pro as well.
Right. And one of those moments I had to imagine is that second place finish last year.
Yeah, even prior to that, I played. It was my third season in Latin America, and I was kind of just going along. I was having a good year. I was getting in contention a lot and playing well, and had a couple top five finishes. But I was like 15th on the points list, maybe with three events left, and it was pretty tight at the top. But you had to be top five to get KORN
Mhm.
Ferry status. And I always kind of thought that would be the way for me to get status was through one of those tours where it's a culmination of 10 to 12 events that you play well over a long period of time and you can finish high up on the points list. And
Mhm.
I won in Bogota, the third to last event. And there's a bunch of moments in that week and that leading up to that too, that kind of led to me being able to finally get over the line
Right.
and win. And that win, it shoots you way up on the points list, and I was able to finish in the top 5 that year on Latin, which gave me Korn Ferry status for the first time. And this was my 5th year pro, so it was pretty kind of I I don't think I was going back to Latin America
Yeah.
again, and I wanted, I felt like this was the year that I even felt the year prior was I was ready to do it, and I was certainly ready to make the jump that year. So yeah, getting Korn Ferry status that year was huge, and then it kind of just bled right into the Korn Ferry season, and got off to a good start, and then yeah, had that second place last year in Dallas, where really felt good enough, like I played good enough to win. But someone shot 31 under par.
Yeah,
So
it's hard to complain whenever somebody's doing that. You just
yeah,
got to give
exactly.
that to them, right? So I think you're seeing people take it further and further under par. I mean, I can't think of what event it was this year that I think Hideki shot what 26 under or something. So
It was, yeah, probably Hawaii, I would
yeah,
guess.
so
Kapalua. Yeah.
I
I
mean, it's
mean,
just
I
crazy.
set that week I set a record for most birdies in the Corn Ferry event and lost by 4
Yeah.
shots.
Yeah, I mean,
So
I know that feeling, in college. So, quick story, we shot 60 under, set an NCAA record. You know, to give you context, I won the event previously, or the previous year, 12 under, shoot 10 under the next year, and finish 17th. So,
yeah,
it rained, it made the conditions easy. We shoot 60 under and still lose by 7. So,
it's unbelievable. Yeah, like I was thinking like me and my coach talk about it quite often. Like if you can get to 20 under, um, you know, 3 to 5 times a year, like that's good enough no matter what tour you're playing on.
right.
And
Yeah.
I think 20 under that week was like tied 10th or 11th, which is a great week, but
Right.
it's not going to get you, a
Yeah,
PJ
over the
Tour.
hump or in that top 5. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool to see, guys pushing the boundaries and making, birdie just almost like a par nowadays, if you will.
Yeah, I know.
What was the decision-making process like when you decided to turn professional? I know you just mentioned, right, you had the internship. Was there anything you had to decide? Was there a job offer that you had out of college that you were thinking about, or, did you talk about it with family, coaches, friends?
Yeah, I kind of decided I wasn't really once I had got off to that or I had that good year my junior year, I kind of wasn't really looking for jobs. I kind of decided at that point, that summer I played amateur stuff, and then the following summer I played amateur stuff as well, kind of like as a job, you so to speak. But um, I knew nothing about turning pro. Like I didn't know. I kind of knew like you can feed your way from Latin or Canada and China at the time too
Hmm.
into the Korn Ferry, and then that Korn Ferry goes to the PJ Tour. But I didn't know anything. Kind of, I knew you had to be somewhere you can play and stuff like that, but I knew nothing. So I had David Hearn, who played 10 years, I think, on the PJ Tour. His um, family friends were like, my parents are dentists; they're patients of my parents.
Yeah.
So I had like known him a little bit, and his dad lives in South Carolina, so they would come and watch me play golf from time to time, just because we had connected with them, and I'd gone to watch him at a PJ Tour event in Boston. And so I reached out to David when I was in college my senior year, and just kind of asked him, just basically asked him for the rundown on like what his opinion on what I should do, and what should be my next step, where should I live, should I get a coach, agent,
Right.
whatever, how that even works. It's just so naive. I knew nothing. And he was like super helpful. He hooked me up. He was working with a guy named Jeff Leishman at the time, who's a coach who
Right.
lives down in Jupiter. And he had an agent who was Elliot Kerr. And he hooked me up with his agent, Elliot. And now knowing like you just don't have agent like when you turn pro unless you're
Right.
top. 50 AM in the world, but I had an agent. And then I went and met with Jeff my senior year, started my senior year in Jupiter. Um, and so I went and met and had a lesson with him, and it kind of felt like an interview, I guess. And he decided that, he would work with me, and I was happy to work with him. So I
Right.
still work with him now. I guess it's 7 years later. I still work with him. He's my coach. And Elliot, my agent for the first like 5 years of my career, 6 years of my career, just retired, but
Yeah.
uh, both super like impactful and super helpful in my career, just getting it started and,
Yeah.
learning how to be a pro. And that brought me down here to Jupiter, where I joined a golf course, the Dive Preserve, and around guys who have helped me a lot.
Hmm.
Just getting started and kind of what to do and how to be a professional and how to travel and, just those things you don't think of really,
Right.
that go into it.
Yeah. I know you mentioned, the level of competition. Is there any other challenges that you face that, were a big difference from amateur to professional? Like you hit on, kind of being naive in the fact of how things operated. Was there anything else that you were like caught off guard by, if you will?
Just probably the travel. Like, we didn't, you don't book flights or anything like that when you're in college. You do it a little bit,
Right.
to go home or to play an amateur event. But I really didn't play like the amateur circuit, like most guys do all summer, like the really good AM events. So just learning like how to travel, and like a big part of it, is like finding somewhere to live and a course to play at where you can practice every day, because
Hmm.
that's getting, more and more expensive, in these hot spots where golfers live. And golf's grown so much, since COVID, that, a lot of these clubs are pretty hard to get into. And your status depends on whether you can get in or not. But I'd say probably the main part, like as a professional, and especially early on in your career, is like getting good at traveling.
Hmm.
And I played my first year professional. I played in China, PJ Tour China, and then I played 3 years of PJ Tour Latin America. So that will really teach you how to travel.
Yeah, probably.
So I was able to learn like how to travel, and do it cheap, and stay with guys. And so I actually like take pride in it now. Like I feel
Yeah.
like if I'm going to a KORN FERRY event, or I'll book it early and try to get the best flight and try to find the best place to stay. And you feel like you start the week under par if you
Yeah.
like, even if you get a deal on a flight, or you have like just a really like good setup or a place to stay, like you just feel like you have a little advantage. So I
Yeah.
kind of take pride in that now, and learning that early in my career was pretty helpful.
Yeah. Hey, man, I know we kind of feel the same way as coaches in the
For
collegiate space.
sure.
We get a cool Airbnb or a nicer hotel. Guys love it. I mean, I can
Yeah.
remember I had a teammate that was from a small town in Illinois. And we stayed at a Holiday Inn one time, and he looked at me when we walked in our room and he goes, "This is the nicest hotel I've ever stayed in." Like he just loved
Yeah.
every second of it. So,
Yeah, it's the best. Like getting an awesome Airbnb like close to the course, especially like we played the start of the year on the Corn Ferry down in South America. Like if you can find a good Airbnb that's very close to food and very close to the course, like you are under par to start the week, no doubt.
yeah. So, what did you enjoy more, traveling in Asia or traveling in South America?
I, both of them were great. I mean, the thing about China, it was my first year pro, so I could have been anywhere.
Yeah.
Everything like cool and
Right.
exciting. Like I was actually talking about this with someone the other day, because he had mentioned that he thought it was crazy that, guy the PJ Tour America season is starting now in Argentina, and he's like,
Hmm.
he couldn't believe, he saw the people who qualified. He couldn't believe Americans flew down to Argentina to play
Hmm.
a Monday. But when I first played in China, I had conditional. I went to Q school in China, had conditional status, and I actually went over there to play the first three Mondays
Right.
in China. So I flew all the way to China to play Mondays. But I just think about that sometimes. It's like I can't, like they had one in Houston this week, and now I'm in Jupiter, and I didn't fly and go play
Yeah.
the Monday because I'm just I want the week off.
Right.
But I was so keen, so that's what made, like it fun being over there, and it was cool. Like you get to see cool parts of the world, and
Right.
somewhere I'd never go if it wasn't for golf.
Right.
And then Latin, I loved Latin, and I always thought that would be I could have played in Canada, being from Canada, but I wanted to use golf as an excuse to travel
Right.
and see new places and stuff. And um, Latin, I felt like you kind of had to be, no, you don't have to be a more complete player per se, but like it's just different, and every week seems different, and it felt like it suited my game, just the way the courses were down there the most. So I loved being down there in certain countries more than others, but and the travel's long, but to some of those places, but it was both were good in their own right. But
Right.
that third year when I was in Latin, it's like it's now or
Yeah.
never. It needs to be now because
Yeah.
um, you go to a place for the first time, it's cool. You go the second time, it's like still pretty cool, and you're
Right.
seeing spots. That third time, it's like all right,
Yeah. Right.
it's
See
pretty
something.
nice to go to Savannah for a golf tournament
Right.
on Argentina.
Yeah. Amen. Any wild stories from either places?
Oh yeah,
I guess some that friendly stories. How about that?
yeah. Ah, gosh, I was actually talking um, with my fiance about this earlier, but when we were in China the one time, we were on in Hainan Island, which is like an island just south of China, but it's like super tropical.
Hmm.
And we were playing, I think it was the second round, but I'd started on the back nine, made the turn, got played one, two, and then three is a par three. It's like
Yeah.
190 yards, but I'm kind of playing the second hole. And I think we were a little bit behind or something.
Yeah.
And I see this par three is just like backed up, and I'm like, I was like, I guess we're caught up. And I'm kind of thinking what's going on, and kind of looking around, and there's just a bunch of people up by the green, kind of waiting around. And the way the hole works is you hit over water, and then you go up to the green, and the only way to get up to the fourth hole was through this like cart path that goes like up the hill through like really thick woods. So it's just a cart path, and then either side super thick woods. And there, we get up on the tee, and we're kind of like, "What's going on?" We finish the second hole, and we're like, "What's going on?" Well, apparently there was a cobra that was like in the middle of the path. It was
Yeah.
just kind of looking, and the guys were just like, "Well, we're not like you're obviously not walking past that to
Right.
get up to the next hole." So they're looking at the rules official like, "Come on, like what do we do?" And the rules official's looking at them like, "I'm not doing it either." Like,
Yeah.
so they had to call like the maintenance crew, and they came out and got it out of there. And it's just pretty funny sitting on the tee and watching these guys just absolutely book it up the
Yeah.
hill, trying to get. I had no idea where the snake was, but they ended up getting by. But we had a little delay there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is lots. Some of the stuff you see when you're in kind of these countries, and just even playing golf, you're just like, what is going on? Like, what
Right.
has me to this point in my life that
Yeah.
this is happening right now? But
Yeah. Amen.
yeah,
Yeah. I imagine you got a lot more where that came from. We'll keep it, like
yeah,
I said, PG. So,
that's right. Keep it PG.
so getting into, I guess, your life on tour, can you walk us through, I guess, a typical week during a tournament? You like, how do you practice, travel, preparation, kind of stuff along those lines?
Yeah, I typically, you know, um, depending on whether I play the week before or not, like depends kind of what I do on Monday. But typically like to try. I was told by a lot of pros, and just when I first turned pro, I see guys PJ Tour status and stuff at my course, and I felt like I was at the course way more than they were. And they do a lot of work when they're at tournaments and stuff, and when they're having their off weeks, it's less. But I just think it's very easy. It's still important to work really hard, but very easy to overdo it. I see some of the best players, it's like their work is very focused, and it doesn't take 5 or 6 hours.
Hmm.
So I've kind of tried to, and I was told to try to take at least one day off a week. So I try my best to take Monday off.
Right.
And if I'm playing, typically we'll have like 3 or 4 in a row, or once we get in the summer, 5 or 6 in a row.
Hmm.
So I try to take Monday off. Tuesday, I've kind of gotten into playing either really early or late, and just playing nine because I'll be in the Wednesday pro-ams, so play nine on Wednesday. It's now I have that luxury where I've seen a lot of the courses, so it's not like a full prep. Like last year felt like very rushed, and towards the end of the season, I kind of got burnt out just trying to kind of learn the courses. But I'll play nine Tuesday, nine Wednesday, and I'll typically do like whether it's like yardages, depending on whether we're at elevation or not. I'll run through my yardages just on the range and hit kind of try to have like a few numbers with each club, a few different shots, like typically four numbers with wedges, each wedge, and at least three with each iron, whether it's like a fade draw or trying to, press one back footed or choke one, chip it.
Right.
But I'll run through those numbers quickly. And then I work a lot on like contact with driver. So I'll just like a pretty simple drill I do. I have like an expo marker and I'll
Mm-hmm.
just put a dot on my driver and then a
Yeah.
dot on the ball and just I'll hit 10 drives and just try to match the dots.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a drill that taught me a lot. It's crazy when, the first one you'll hit and you'll hit it, way off the toe
Mm-hmm.
and you just don't even really think about doing anything different, but you just recognize that you hit the last one. So it's kind of like a subconscious thought, and you just will match it up on the next one. So that's helped me a lot. I think it's the biggest thing, especially with drivers, just hitting it solid. Your swing's not ever going to be that much different, if you have good targets and stuff, if you just hit it solid. So do something like that, and then I'll put a rope down in front of me for like alignment.
Mm-hmm.
I've just found that alignment for me is more of a visual thing and less of like where the lines are like on my feet or my shoulders. So it's like a visual. So I'll look down the rope, kind of
Right.
at a target I want, and just work on face control. Just start some right, curve them back to my target, start some left, curve them back to my target.
Yeah.
So that's kind of mainly all I do on the range. That typically will happen on a Tuesday. And then if I feel like I need to, based on how those nine holes or where I feel like the state of my game is at, maybe focus on one thing a little more than the other.
Right.
And then putting is just a lot of speed drills.
Yeah.
So do a ton of speed drills. Find the more comfortable you can be with your speed, just the better you'll read greens, the better you'll see lines if you just can kind of get a good feel for the speed of the greens. And then I'll try to do it. It takes quite a bit of like focus, but it's
Yep.
20 putts from 4 to 8 feet. So there's like, it's Luke Donald's drill.
Mm-hmm.
He's said it in an interview before, but he'll do 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tees around a hole. He'll hit those 5 putts. He'll go to a new hole and set it up again. So it
Yep.
ends up being 20 putts, with the goal trying to get 15 or 16 out of 20. And sometimes at tournaments, depending on where I'm at mentally, I'm not going to probably do that, but I'll try to hit a bunch of putts from, say 4 to 10 feet,
Right.
just to try to start seeing lines and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the course, I like to just play games. I get so
Right.
bored if I just like try to play a practice round and learn the course. Books are so good. You have a
Right.
caddy. I've seen the courses before now, so I'll just play a game with some buddies on Tuesday, and then Wednesdays I try to really focus like on the proms about like making it a good time for the AMs. I think
Right.
um, that's something that was also told to me by other pros. Some of the older guys is like that is an important day just to you can kind of just shut yourself off from your game a little bit, which is nice on a Wednesday before you
Mm-hmm.
play, the next 4 days. But you never know who you're going to meet
Mm-hmm.
in those like those pro-ams. And not with that intention of trying to get something out of it, but
Right.
you never know who you'll meet. And, that's a really important part early on in your career is kind of the funding, depending on your financial situation, is the
Yep.
funding you have. And you never know in those things who you'll meet, who wants to help
Yep.
you, who likes your story. So I think it's important to try to make that a good time for those guys on Wednesdays.
Yeah, do pro-ams turn into lessons most of the time, or those
Yeah,
guys?
but it's like the same lesson every time. I
Yeah,
mean, it's so easy. Like it's either a putting thing where I just tell them to like say a word in their head so their
yeah,
pace is the same, or how to fix a slice.
yeah.
But it's or chipping. Hit the ball
Yeah.
first, don't hit the ground.
Every golf to YouTube video ever looked up.
Yeah, it's literally the easiest. I say to guys too. It's like because guys will get nervous. It's like there's nothing that you can do today that will like surprise me. Like
Right.
I've seen swing and miss, nothing that you can do today is going to be shocking. So just try to make it a good time for them. But yeah, how to fix a slice is the most typical one. If I get someone who's like hooking it, it's like, all right, that just feels way easier to fix
Yeah,
to me.
yeah.
But the slice is something that's it's such a pattern for
Right,
people that um, yeah, it's hard to make them realize like you could just turn the club face. Like I'll take the club in their hand and turn it dead shut
right,
and then have them swing and they'll still open it, but it'll open to square
right.
and they'll hit like a seed down the fairway. But that's like the quick fix. That's if the group's taking a little too long and I want to get the 9 holes over with.
Yeah, amen. I
Yeah.
mean, I know I heard a story from a guy I was talking to one time. I don't know if you have anything like this, but he had a guy that was better that he was playing with it in his pro-am, working along the way he's taking it serious. He's trying to, I guess,
Yeah.
impress the pro. And he goes after the round, he comes up with a scorecard and asks him to sign it. And he's looking at it. He's like, you have your scores that you're beating me here. He's like, yeah, well, I did. He's like, okay, like, what are you trying to get out of this? And they just,
What's your point of this?
yeah, he was just
The
basically trying to prove that, I guess, to his buddies that he beat a pro guy, but they were scrambling. I don't know if he counted the scramble scores or not, but he said that was a weird interaction that,
Yeah, you get it. Like 95% of the guys, 99% of the guys you play with are great.
you're
You
right.
get the odd one, but that's like anything.
Right.
But you just water off a duck's back.
Yeah. Amen.
Don't concern yourself with that too much.
Amen. I guess with putting, do you view yourself as a good putter when it comes to that? I know you mentioned speed drills. That's something as college coaches that I think we all emphasize a lot. I view myself as a good putter, and I think for me, whenever I hit or am putting well, like I'm hitting every putt like a foot and a half by, and I'm
Yeah,
reading everything like a foot and a half by. Where I see guys that struggle, they try to hit a bunch of different speeds. Not that it's
yeah,
bad, but I think it's just, if you're not going to do it like you normally would, why are you trying it now? Is that
yeah,
something that you can relate to or provide
yeah.
some context on?
It's like it's an interesting thing. I think people are so focused on start line because if you miss a short putt, the speed's not as important on a 4 footer, but
Right.
your start line is, and that's kind of something that burns in your brain a little bit of
Hmm.
missing a short putt. Um, and I've gone like kind of back and forth on this where, um, I can get too much this way where I'm trying to start the ball perfectly on line and stuff. But if your speed is, to make a putt that's 20 feet and, over a 2% right to left, you can make it on, 25 different lines.
Right.
It's about matching the speed. So if your speed is good, one, you're not going to three putt very much. And two, you're giving yourself a chance to make putts. And that's a lot what it's about. And a guy, Kyle Westmoreland, he's gotten off to a really good start this year on the KORN FERRY 1 in Bogota. He had tour status a couple years ago, and he's very into technology and Sam Putt Lab and Quintic. And we were talking on the putting green one time, and he told me he got so obsessed, on Quintic was getting his at impact having his face be square 0.0 like,
Hmm.
and he practiced it so much, and he could deliver the face like within zero point 0.2 or zero point 0.1 to square every time.
Right.
And he says it's the worst I've ever putted
Yeah.
because it's just I view it more as it is a bit more of an art form
Right.
than it is technical. And granted, it's important to start it on the line. Don't get me wrong, but I think your problems most cases are less about starting it online and more often about speed and matching and reading greens. So working on reading greens and working on speed drills is something that I've found a lot more success in putting well is being good and having a good feel for the speed of the greens.
Yeah, amen. Like you said, avoiding three putts is the biggest thing, or saving grace, if you will, to having a good round be a great round. If you have two three putts, the 17 turns into a 68. And I think, we
Yeah,
all.
it just and having good speed and no three putts and stuff, it just kind of allows you to play the right way.
Mhm.
If you feel like confident in the speed of the greens, you're okay aiming 5 or 6 right of a flag, and if it fades out to the right and you have 40 feet, it's not like this panic
Mhm.
of trying to make par. It's just you feel comfortable. You just brush it down there to
Right.
a foot or two, and you tap it in. And you're on the next hole. It's just, especially certain courses, depending. College courses are typically a lot harder and stuff. You know, I think when your speed is good or your short game's good, your chipping's good, it kind of allows you to play the right way,
Mhm.
and feel like it's not forced. Like you don't have to hit it to five, 5 or 6 feet to make a
Right.
birdie. It's just like you can play the right way and pick them off, here
Yeah.
and there.
How many, I guess, guys on tour, whether it be Corn Ferry Latin or Corn or PGA, are, I guess, getting in this mindset of decade golf? Is that something that you know much about?
Yeah, I know about it, and I've had the app, and I've kind of learned about it and stuff. I think everyone does it to an
Hmm.
extent, and sometimes I find myself like, especially when I'm not playing well, I can kind of feel like decade is like a little aggressive
Right.
um, sometimes, and I'm like, depending on the course, I'm like, yeah, I think you kind of have to take into account how you're playing, how you're feeling, and that should be determining a little bit kind of where you're aiming.
Mhm.
But I think every pro does their own version of decade, especially where we have caddies now. Whether it's picking a tree in the back where you're trying to start it at, and just make your dispersion fit somewhere in there, to where a bad one isn't going to be an X or a bogey. I would say everyone does a version of it, whether it's like the actual decade or um, their own version of it. But I think your caddy, I think it's probably more value for your caddy to be,
Right.
a decade guy, than it is for you to be like strict on this is where I'm going to aim every single time. Because that just, to me, it always like took the um, kind of fun out of it a little bit.
Right.
And like at times when you're dealing, you want to just, you feel the shot, and you
Mhm.
want to work it in there to the pin, then I think it's okay to do that. It's a
Right.
game for all.
Yeah, amen. I think every high level player, I think, has been at a point, well, let's just say college and up, where they've had moments in a tournament or throughout their career where it's been like, yeah, like I can't miss right now. Like, there's no
Mm-hmm.
point in playing it safe. And not to say that it's wrong to do that, but I think you just, like you mentioned, you got to understand where you're at with your swing or what's happening in the
Yeah,
kind of that week and apply that whether it needs to be aggressive or not and go from there.
no
So
doubt.
yeah, the mental part of the game, how do you stay sharp and focused, or is that something that you kind of have worked on or don't really care about, or what does that look like for you?
No, it's like a part probably for most guys, and I'm definitely in this boat where it's like you go spend 4 hours on the range, no problem. But to do
Hmm.
something that's like mentally going to help you for 20 minutes, it's
Right.
just kind of like, is it really going to help me? Because
Right.
there's not like you don't, you can't quantify it, I guess.
Right.
Um, and something that I work on and am still working on. And I've read kind of a lot of self help books about it, not even golf specific, but um, just kind of ways to think and how to manage stressful situations. And I've done a bit of like, there's an app called NeuroPeak
Hmm.
Pro, and I've I did that for like close to a year, probably 9 months. And that helped a lot, just like how to breathe properly.
Hmm.
It's like a thing you don't think about.
Right.
But it certainly, like I've noticed it certainly helped me a lot in tournaments. If I'm, I'll feel myself getting nervous, which is fine, but
Hmm.
I'll just kind of can feel my heart rate rising a little bit, and we'll just think about that, work I've done doing that. But um, it's kind of a part that I've thought about a lot recently as well, and you know how to be positive when there's not much to be positive about, and
Right. Right.
have belief when there's not a ton to believe about. So I think it's just um, kind of you can. I think it's really good to have delusional belief
Right. Yeah.
and just no matter what, I've seen guys that have it and it works, and it's you feel like you're better at golf than they are, and they just have so much belief in themselves that it will carry them on.
Hmm.
This is something I'm constantly working on, and have probably worked on it a little bit more the last few weeks during this
Hmm.
off weeks, just to. I felt the start of this year like my game's probably in a better place and what my results have shown. And so I think that's probably a big part of it, and
Yeah.
just realizing that. And it's always good coming off a couple weeks off. You feel fresh and you feel like you're in a good mindset to go play. So yeah, I'm looking forward to these next few weeks. To It's easy to say when you're sitting at home to have
Right.
a good mindset. It's one thing
Yeah.
when make a bad bogey on the second hole, and then it's important to remember kind of what you were thinking about when you're at home and in a clear state of mind.
Yeah, I know my fiance will enjoy hearing your response to that. So, just quick insight: she's a mental performance coach, and she
Yeah.
got her certification, and she now works for the university, but trying to build a private clinic as well. And she's been working with our golf team, and she's really helped. I mean, 70% of our team sees her, so
Yeah.
she works with all the athletes though, and she's had some, and she's a big believer in keeping a positive attitude. So I know
Yeah.
it's
And I've always, I believe it too. I
yeah,
think it is too. And then it's just one of those things where it's like, I always kind of thought, well, um, the chicken doesn't come before the egg. Like you have to play well to be positive, and it's
right,
not at all. It's
yeah,
definitely not the case at all. Like it's how you think and how you view situations
yeah,
can really help you. I've read a book. I'm rereading it right now. It's called The Confident Mind
hmm,
um, by Nate Zinzer, and I would suggest any athlete or any golfer. I would couldn't recommend this book more. It doesn't even talk about golf that much or
right,
at all, really. But it's just I actually read it last year, kind of at the start of the year when I was playing really well, and I thought, when I was home, I was kind of thinking about that, and I was like, I'm gonna go over it and read it again. Maybe it'll spark something. So it's kind of felt like it got me thinking the right way, and
yeah,
kind of teaches you how to be confident, which is a
yeah,
weird thing to think
yeah.
about.
Amen. I imagine you've heard of Bob Rotella. So, did you
Yeah.
ever play in the U.S. Kids thing at Pinehurst?
No.
So, it's a 14-hour drive from Memphis, where I'm from, to
Mm-hmm.
there. And my dad bought the CD versions. And as a 13 and 14-year-old, back-to-back years, we listened to all the audio tapes he released. So,
I
that,
don't know if that was the age for it to really stick with me,
yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, I
Nate
was
Zinsser,
still,
the guy that wrote this book, is was a student at UVA, and
yeah,
one of the teachers was Bob Rotella. So
yeah.
he's
That's
kind of
awesome.
disciple. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I mean, I was still getting pissed or slamming clubs or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
I think,
exactly. Once you get out there, it's different.
right, amen. Yeah, so practice routines, outside of a tournament, how much time do you dedicate? I know you mentioned that there's some guys you think you or that you do outwork and you see that works for them. What has worked for you when it comes to that type of stuff?
Yeah, I've found that the more not the shorter I can make it, but I try to like we'll do it in spurts. So
Mm-hmm.
like I'll really work one thing for say 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
and then do something else for 20 minutes. Well, you could still be on the range, but
Right.
not even 20 minutes, 10 minutes. But I find like if I can do that, it stays more focused because I've had, even last week was a way worse practice week for me. Not even because I was playing worse or whatever, but I just felt
Mm-hmm.
like it wasn't as focused.
Right.
And then the last few days, I felt like I got a lot of stuff done and it felt focused and like I was working on the right things. So it really is day to day, but typically if I try to play as much as I can. I just think there's no like replacement for
Right.
playing
Yeah.
golf. So even if I am having just like a practice day, I'll try to go out on the course and do it where I'll just like drop 4 or 5 balls and hit wedges, from hit a 110-yard shot, a
Right.
116. You can hit shots on the range all day and it just has it's no comparison to
Yeah.
16 to a back left pin with wind in off the left. You just can't make that up
Right.
on the range. But I've been really trying to think about how on the range I have like conscious thoughts of what I'm trying to do,
Right.
and then on the course have it be subconscious. Be reactive and be athletic a bit more on
Right.
the course, and try to really separate those two things.
Yeah.
And like if I can really have conscious thoughts on the range and really work on one specific thing, but then on the course have those things come subconsciously.
Right.
I just feel like that is the way when you get in a flow and are playing really good golf. A lot of it is subconscious.
Right.
So I'll typically, even if I'm having just a practice day, I'll typically try to just go out on the course
Yeah.
and play. But I try to play at least, I play probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah. I'm a
I,
big believer in that as well.
yeah. So I'll probably practice. I'll practice putting for if I'm doing today. I practice putting for an hour. I hit balls for 45 minutes and chipped for 30, and then I went on the course and did all the same stuff that I was doing in practice, but just did it on the course. Chipping, hitting it, trying to get up and down, and chipping to 8 feet is the same thing as setting up an 8 footer on a
Right.
practice green, and you probably care more about it on the course when you're
Right.
trying to
Yeah.
get 8 of 10 up and
Yeah.
down or whatever it is. So
Yeah. I mean, I think the closest thing that I've ever seen to that can emulate, I guess, shots on the course is I saw it from Arizona State. So they released a practice and it's basically called a total game challenge. And it might be worth, looking it up for yourself if you're ever looking to change stuff up. But basically, I'll run through it. I have it in my notes right here. So you get 5 putts from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10 feet. You take or do that twice. 10 putts, you take your best score. So, like for example, mine's 7 out of 10. And you basically 5 putts from 15 feet, 10 lag putts, and then it all adds up to 10. You do chips, you do wedge shots, iron shots, and hitting a fairway that you create on the range. And that's so your best all score out of 100. So, like a test, if you will.
yeah,
And it's very eye-opening to the point to like my best overall score in one session was 63, and I think Arizona State did theirs, and like their highest was like I think 82 or but
right.
it's averaging around like the
How
60.
long did that take you?
Like roughly 2 hours, if that. Like
That's like
it's
my one thing with something like that is like, and I think it's great,
hmm
but like even like when I do those 20 putts, when
yeah,
it's like 4 to 8, like I have to do 10 and then go like to the range and come back and do the 10 because I feel like it's all kind of blending and I'm getting, and maybe some people have like more attention span than me,
right.
like ADHD. So
Yeah.
I don't have a big attention span, but I can just feel like some of those things, even when, because it's pretty typical. Like I feel like I on they have like a Golf Canada like a pro team
Right.
where we're like supported by um like Golf Canada, and we wear the logo, and we'll have
Right.
camps and stuff like that. And it's very similar to how like the college team would run. And sometimes when you have like these structured things, like you have to do this, this, and this, it just kind of feels like you go through the motions a little bit. To whereas I think if you like tell yourself like, all right, this week I have these next 5 days to do that, or
Yeah.
next 3 days even to do that. Whether it's I want to do the 5 to 10 footers on Monday, and then I'll do the chipping on Monday too, and
Right.
then I'll do the lag putting Tuesday, where you can kind of break it up a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because it feels like to me that way it feels more like how you would play around a golf. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like you
Yep.
hit a drive and then you hit a wedge and then you putt. To where it's like split up a little bit and then you get like a better sense of where it's actually at as opposed to just
Right.
like that day you had a good feel in your hands with the putter.
Right.
So like that's my only, I guess, not even that I'm arguing with you, but that I think it's great to do that stuff. But I think just like when it's like, all right, go do this, it
Mm-hmm.
just feels like, all right, let me get through this
Yeah.
because it just
Yeah.
drags, a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
I think that's a good point. Like, right, we have two different viewpoints, and for somebody that maybe listening to this trying to figure out how to practice, like Miles just said, something that works for him may not work for me, and something that works for me may
yeah,
not work for him. And I think just finding a good balance, whether it's breaking stuff up or doing it all at once, or
yeah,
diagnosing yourself with ADHD and figuring out you can sit
yeah.
there and do
That's a
stuff.
big part. It's a
So,
big part of like being a pro and like how you structure your weeks and how you like, especially tournament weeks. Like guys are pretty like into their routine and like you'll see
yeah.
it. Like I could go pick a guy next week and see what he does, just kind of keep an eye on what he does. And I would bet in 3 weeks when we're at another tournament, he's doing the exact same stuff. You know
Right.
what I mean? So it is a big part of, you know, being, getting to a high level of golf is learning, what works for you and your routine of, how you do things and the
Right.
order, how much time you dedicate to one particular thing.
Amen. Yeah, so I guess next topic, and we have three more, and I'm kind
You're
of
good, dude.
you're answering some as we go along
I'm long
sometimes.
winded too.
Yeah.
So,
Amen. I mean, we did some pilot episodes and like we just, being golf nerds, anybody that's invested a lot of time into it, they can talk for days about it. So,
yeah,
I mean, we've had 3 hour
it's
calls before.
it's funny when you start like I did a thing last year. I went back to Nova Scotia and I just had like a day at the course that I played some holes with some people and I did like a junior clinic in the morning and I was kind of talking to these juniors about like how I practice and there was like 20 of them there and just how I practice and this is what I do. This is like my foundation of the things I work on. And I just remember thinking like when I was like done it and I'm like I finished and I'm like I had it was kind of a rough patch in the year. I'd missed a few cuts in a row, and I'm like, I haven't been doing this. I'm telling these
Yeah.
kids like this is what I do to practice. I have not been doing this.
Right.
So even like in talking about like this kind of stuff, it's a good reminder of like what your foundation is and
Yeah.
what you work on.
Yeah.
It's good to think about that stuff.
Yeah. Amen. So, next topic, personal insights and lifestyle. Who or what motivates you, to push yourself, especially during, tough times in your career? Is there anybody in particular, mom, dad? I think you mentioned you have a fiance.
Yeah, they're all like they're all you know my biggest fans, but they don't care if I shoot
Yeah.
78 or I mean they're happy for me when I
Right.
shoot, 65, but they're my dad was never someone that was hard on me or my mom or
Hmm.
whatever was hard on me when I played bad, but I would say like I'm pretty like self-motivated.
Hmm.
I want to do well and I want to prove to myself that I can, succeed and play well and get a PGA Tour card and have a good career doing it.
Right.
And it's what I'd like to do and what I've wanted to do for a while. So I'm pretty self motivated in that. But yeah, just and a lot of the people that have helped me along the way. is kind of motivating to kind of not to prove to them. They've obviously helped me and believe in me as well, but just to kind of make it all worth it a little bit is motivating. Countless people and just even from people who have let me stay at their house for the week when I'm playing a
Right.
tournament, stuff like that. It's cool because I've been at these people's places where they have tournaments every year, and they'll talk about so and so stayed with me a couple years ago. They got their tour card, so it's cool
Yeah.
to be able to do that and hopefully be able to do that this year and in the next couple of years.
Yeah. Amen. I mean, quick story. So I live in Memphis or lived in Memphis growing up. Grew up playing at TPC Southwind where they have the first
Mm-hmm.
leg of the playoff. And before it became that, it wasn't really ever too often that we had a few or a lot of big names come. It would always be like a Phil Mickelson or Rory or Brooks, like one guy. But when I was, I think 15, I was going to play a tournament in Scotland. And the week before we leave, my neighbor tells us that he had rented his house out for the tournament. And lo and behold, our neighbor for the week was going to be Rory McIlroy.
Oh,
And
unreal.
yeah. And meanwhile, or we're going to be traveling to Scotland. And I asked my dad, I'm like, can we cancel this trip? I know it's last minute. How often am I going to be able to ever A, meet this guy or B, have a putting competition in our backyard? So
Right.
unfortunately, we had to go to Scotland and
Yeah.
shoot a
Oh, for
couple.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. So couple mid 70s made up for it, played good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it was fun, but yeah, that's always I always tell people I would have bladed one over the fence and then Rory McIlroy.
You'd have been best friends with them for
Oh
sure.
yeah, yeah. So who knows how that would have played out, but
Right.
yeah, I think that would have been
You
something
probably
cool.
didn't miss much.
Yeah, no.
If you stayed home, it probably would have been
Yeah.
pretty disappointing. Him
Well, yeah, I think he
him going
lost.
to the golf course.
Yeah, I think he lost to Brooks that year, so I know
Okay.
I think he manhandled him, I guess in the final round, but it was a battle up until that point.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Um, non-golf related, what are your hobbies when it comes to off the course?
So bad with that stuff. Like I so people ask me that all the time, and it's just like go to dinner. Even when I was trying to propose like a year and a half ago, I was
Yeah,
just like, people like go hiking and they'll do it on a hike, or they
yeah,
go, to the beach or whatever, they'll do it there. It's like I just like we go to dinner,
yeah,
but like I don't know, we don't do a ton. I mean, I hang out with friends,
yeah,
play cards, go to
yeah,
dinner. I mean, a lot of what I do is related to even if it's not golf. Go to the gym.
yeah.
It's for golf. I've gotten into like cold plunging.
Okay.
Love doing that.
Yeah,
Um, it's for golf.
yeah,
A lot of the
yeah,
things are related back to golf. And reading is for
yeah.
golf. All of that stuff. So um, as much as even if I'm not golfing, you know, pretty sad to say a lot of it is for that. But yeah, I like to have some drinks with my buddies or
Right.
whatever,
Yeah,
travel a bit, go on some trips or something, but nothing too crazy. Play some gin, play
yeah,
some cards.
yeah.
Um,
Amen.
that's
And
what we do a lot. I got into that recently on the road. We had some
yeah.
rain days in Argentina, and I probably played 20 hours of gin that week. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
that's
know I know tournaments you're always people can be looking for stuff to do and
yeah.
no telling what people get into, what
That's a big thing. Like in traveling, is I'll do Airbnbs and stay with guys, and that just makes it, it makes you look forward to it. It's
hmm
almost like a buddy's trip. I know it's not that at
Yeah.
all, but when you can, you go to the course and you come back and it's with some, guy. You have tons of friends on tour, but guys that you want to be around and hang out with, and you'll go to dinner, and, you know, shoot the shit and
Yeah.
whatever. That is like a big part of traveling for me is traveling with a good group of guys and
Yeah.
fun doing that.
I guess speaking of a good guy, Owen Patterson, he set us up.
Right. Yeah.
Mutual friend there. I'll be going to the lake with him in about 2 months and look forward to hanging out with him. He's a fun time and
Yeah. We do a thing kind of every year now where I go to an Ole Miss football game. So
yeah.
I look forward to doing that and getting up there and going with him. And I'm getting married this summer in back home where we're from. So I'll see
Hmm.
for that. And he usually comes when we play in like Knoxville, or where he came to Utah last year randomly to
Yeah.
come with me. So he'll come to some tournaments and watch me play.
Yeah.
It's a good mine.
He's a good guy. And like I
Yeah.
said, I enjoy being around him and was in a
Yeah.
fraternity with him, played some golf with him. And
He's a fun time. He's
I
got
like,
the bug big time now, golf bug big
oh,
time.
yeah. Yeah, I know. He ordered some grips that I like just put on my set that I don't use. And
Yeah.
we were just talking about it. I don't know if you saw he posted those barrels that he also got. And
Yeah.
he was loving it. So
Yeah.
hopefully that helps improve his game a little.
I'm sure it won't, but
Amen. Um, so balancing life and golf, I know you mentioned, like everything you kind of do is involving golf. Is there a work-life balance? Like, is there, you know, you're competing at such a high level. How do you balance that stuff in the sense of like, I guess you don't want to overdo it or, you
yeah.
need to put time towards like a cold plunge or working out, whatever.
Yeah. I think those things like, what is a good way, even though it's for golf, when you're doing it, you don't feel like it's for golf. So it's those things are great. I, tr- I try to take, a couple days off and just not touch a club. But yeah, it's important. And it's something that I could do a better job of. And I've been told by a lot of the older guys who are at my club and stuff that, having kids, it gives them stuff to do. But they always
Right.
laugh at me like, you just go home and sit on the couch. Like when I get home, like my work day is just starting.
Yeah.
So you know, maybe eventually, have some kids, but I'm pretty fortunate now to when I come home, I can just kind of turn my brain off and just do whatever, whether it's watch sports or just hang out. And that's a big part of, what we do on the road too. We try to not talk about golf at all
Hmm.
when we're done at dinner. And when I was in China, I went to dinner. This was my first year professional, and I would travel with a bunch of the Aussie guys, and a few of them were older guys. And when we went to dinner, like the only rule was not to talk about golf.
Yeah.
And the one guy always said, if you're mad that you made a six, the person you're telling wishes you made a seven. So no one
Yeah.
cares about your
Yeah.
bad. So
Yeah.
that's like kind of how I balance it is just try to, when something I've gotten a lot better at as my career's gone on is when the round's over, it's over.
Yeah.
Don't bring it back with you. And easier said than done sometimes for sure. But yeah, I think it's really important to not, let that day or that round kind of define where your game is at or where you're at as a golfer.
Hmm.
To be able to kind of leave that at the course and shut your brain off from golf and just talk about other things or do other stuff or just
Yeah.
hang out,
Yeah.
is super important aspect of it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people that, right, if you want to play at a high level, whether it's anybody in college or above, I think what Miles just said is so important to, I've been in that scenario. I've watched one of our players get thoroughly irritated and to the point he screamed today that he was the reason he thought we lost the match because, you know, they're just so invested and it takes up or it's so meaningful to them. Like at the end of the day, it's just golf. Like just leave it
Mm-hmm.
where it is at the course and I think if people can manage that, that'll set them up to, not have so much pressure on themselves or be able to perform at their peak or best, I should say.
Yeah, like these things feel like the biggest thing in that
Right.
moment, and it's inevitable. Like if I go play a money game tomorrow and bogey the 18th hole, like it will, I'm not going to be that as mad as the kid today who felt like he
Yeah.
lost the match, and I'm sure didn't. But it feels like the biggest thing in the moment. But if you can create like a little bit of a space between that urge and your reaction, and kind of just grasp it for what it really is. And I was told, someone told me pretty early on in my career, it's like, will you care about it in 3 months?
Yeah.
95% of the time, no, you won't. So then what's it matter?
Yeah.
It's over with now. And that goes back to, if you try, if you put the work in and you feel like you work hard and you do the right things and you work out and stretch before your rounds and show up and try your hardest, then, you know, that's, what all you can do. So
Yeah.
that helps you, get over those things a lot easier if, you are doing the right things and preparing the right way and stuff like that, because there's nothing else that you can
Yeah.
do with that.
I mean, my boss and the coach I played for in college, I think he put it the best way. Nobody's going to remember this 3 months from now, like you said, let
Yeah.
alone 5 years from now. Nobody gives too much of a crap about, your golf game, and it's not a
Yeah.
big deal at the end of the day. So,
And especially like in college and junior and amateur, and even professional, like early on in my career, like it feels like the biggest thing.
hmm
But like I think back to when I was in college, like, I'm sure I had situations where I should have won events and didn't. And it's like, you're devastated about it. Like, it just does not matter. Like,
hmm
the second you turn professional, unless you're a top 10 guy or PJ Tour U kid, it, it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
that's
Amen.
important to remember.
Yeah. Amen. Future of the game. What are some changes or trends in the professional golf that you're excited for or not excited for?
I'm not sure. Like, I don't know. I mean, I know kind of where things are at now and maybe what's going to happen or whatever, but um, you know, certainly playing opportunities are being limited. Um, but that doesn't change the fact that, the year I got through Latin was only top five. Every other year it's always been top 10. And a lot of
hmm
guys were like, well, it's only top five now, gate status, so I'm not going to go play. Like, it's not worth it. Well, there's still five guys getting cards. So, there's still the opportunity to progress, and you'll have opportunities even when you get your PJ Tour card, that if you play well, the guys who are playing well are not going to complain about it because they've
Right.
earned the right to be there. So I think getting like invested in that stuff too much is very slippery slope. And you hear a lot of guys that are very invested in it, and it makes sense for Rory McIlroy or guys who are have influence in the game to be very invested in it because they're being asked about it, and their opinion matters. But I just, for me, and I do believe that people, even on the Korn Ferry, their opinion will matter as well. But for me, I just don't want to be invested. I think if
Right.
you play good, and that'll take care of itself. But there are things that are great, like Korn Ferry events are getting better. The purses grew a ton within the last 5 years, so there are opportunities elsewhere. Like, you sustain yourself by playing on the Korn Ferry Tour very comfortably now if you're keeping your cards. So
hmm
uh, that's gotten a lot better from what it was 3 or 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
But as far as the changes that are happening, I don't know. I was
Right.
asked if I wanted to be on the pack, the players, I don't even know what it stands for, but for the Korn Ferry, where you get to kind of help in making some decisions or change. And I really, didn't really want to be involved with it,
Yeah.
just because I'd rather focus on, trying to make birdies and
Right.
less about that. So
I mean, I
I
think
think it's important. It's crazy, I feel like growing up, nothing happened, nothing changed. I'm
right.
sure things did. But like nothing big changed, and it feels like every year for the last, like since COVID or since Live started, every year something is changing.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know at what point it stops or where they get to the point where they're happy with where it's at, but and those are decisions that are way over my pay grade. So
Yeah. I think the good thing it is providing is right, like you just mentioned, it's constantly changing, and I don't think that is necessarily a good thing in the long term, but in the short term, it keeps people talking, like who's staying, who's going to live, who might be trying to come back, whatever it might be. Um, but I could see this playing out to right. Boxing used to be the cash cow for all sports in the seven, or I don't even know, for the longest time.
Yeah,
And then as soon as there became all these different titles, you could be holding five belts and be a world champion. I could be holding five belts and be a world champion, and we
yeah,
never fight each other.
it just devalues it.
Yeah, so and I think that's why boxing took such a dive, and if it wasn't for Jake Paul, unfortunately, they wouldn't be really relative. So I just that's my only fear. I wish or I hope that it gets unified, and like me and the other guy I've talked about that I do this with, you know, I just want it to become the way it is where you see a packed leaderboard, where you have all the guys that went to live back playing at least some or a lot more than just majors against the normal guys, if you will.
It
So,
is. It does make the majors exciting, no doubt
yeah,
about
I
that.
agree.
And I haven't watched a ton of live, but it is tough for those guys in that like you compete against 50 players kind of week in and week out, and then you have to go to a major championship where you're competing. It's just you don't really get a sense of where your game is at when like John Rahm could wake up in the top 10 on that
Right.
tour. And it's not to discount the other guys at all, but like he's so talented that but if he was playing on the PGA tour, if he was at the players and he didn't have a good week, he would finish, I mean, maybe he'd miss a cut. He'd finish 30th or 35th. So but he can have just a so-so week playing on the live tour and finish ninth or eighth. And he doesn't I just feel like he doesn't really get a sense for where his game is at, which is not helpful for him when he
Right.
shows up at a US Open venue and is trying to compete, against 156 of the best players in the world. It makes it
Right.
really hard. So
Yeah.
a way to unify them and to get them back, I don't know how that would work or how it looks, how who would be able to come back or what, but yeah, I think it'd be a good thing for everyone.
Right. Yeah. Amen. I guess, kind of the inclusivity part or accessibility. Do you think golf is becoming more inclusive or more exclusive when it comes to either pro golf, just getting into the game, whatever?
I think it's more include. I think it's a bit more inclusive. I think more people are playing, like, and I don't know if it's just guys who are my age, and that's kind of the sweet spot for guys that
Right.
their sports in college or whatever, or in a frat college, and now want something to do on the weekends with their buddies and play golf. But I do feel like, especially in Canada, golf's grown a ton. There's so many more people playing golf in Canada. Courses are way busier. Um, so I do believe it's more inclusive. The place I live, Jupiter,
Right.
it's not very inclusive to play. It's pretty hard to play public golf here.
Right.
It's exclusive, but I think that's pretty small sample size of what it's really like. And
Yeah.
I think people are into golf more now than ever, which is a
Yeah.
great thing. Where it's like the YouTube golf or um, live or PJ Tour or whatever they're watching. I think people are more excited to watch golf, and purses are growing every year.
Hmm.
That's not on accident. So, yeah, I think more people are into it, and it's a bit more inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think you brought a good point there at the end with the YouTube people. It's cool to see how much they've grown the game and how they're all kind of average Joes, if you will. There's a couple
Yeah,
of good of ones like the Bryan brothers, but
yeah,
average Joe is just making golf popular, and I think that just brings more and more people. In high school, I imagine it was pretty similar to my experience. Like I played a lot of sports, but none of my friends wanted to play golf. I had my
100%.
golf buddies, but as soon as we get out of college, like you said, everybody's kind of in that sweet spot, and they want to play it, they want to be around it, they want to do it more, and I think it's cool to see, and like it is. I would agree, inclusive, and it's fun to see it becoming more accessible to people. And I wish there's a way. My only caveat is if we could bring the prices down. Like I found funny enough, I found like an old receipt my dad had of him buying me like a R7 driver for like $150, brand new. And it's $1,000 now, granted, inflation, whatever. But it was cool to see that. And I remember, I think Vokey wedges being like $80 back in the day.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I'm naive to that stuff for sure. But yeah, like I give my buddies like there's a lot of I mean I still have a ton of clubs down in my garage
Yeah.
of old clubs and stuff, but come and get them whoever wants them. But
Yeah.
I give them like the hand me downs. I'm not the guy that like needs to keep all my old clubs and all my old
Yeah.
irons because like it's so expensive to buy
Right.
a new set of
Yeah.
irons. But yeah, that is one thing that yeah, I don't know. It's hard because people are going to buy it,
Yeah.
so it's why would you not charge that? So
Yeah.
it's
Amen.
tough.
I think golf companies kind of have this same or this threshold or grip on people to where it's like you're not gonna put car or you're not gonna not put car gasoline in your car. You can
Right.
kick balls, like they can charge whatever. You need new clubs or new grooves on a wedge, like you're gonna re-up on those, whatever it
Yep.
might be.
I
So
know.
yeah. Only if I don't know. I think we'll just get off that topic. Um, let me find out where we were. So apologize, I lost my spot in my notes.
Pretty good.
Personal goals or for the next couple of years, obviously you're on the Korn Ferry. You would love to get on the PGA Tour as what everybody else on there. You came pretty close this past year. You had a shot going into the final stage, correct? Or final event.
Yeah, I was in a really good spot last year. I mean, I think I was after we have 26 events. I think after 10 events, I was in like 12th on the money list. You need to be top 30, and just kind of was like a bit of a slow bleed. Um, the rest of the year I had some good weeks, but my good weeks weren't top tens.
Right.
Sometimes they, 28s or whatever it was. But yeah, I think that's obviously a goal. You know, everyone's is to be in the top 20 but I think just, if I can kind of stay, I got a little bit last year and like searching a little bit.
Mhm.
I had like an injury towards kind of the end of the last year, which is something that's probably been I've had for a while, but kind of came to roost last year, like in the summer. And so I've kind of managed that pretty well now and feel pretty healthy. Um, so I just think if I can just improve and do the things that I do well, do them like really well, then I think that is good enough. And I've
Right.
seen when my game is on and when I'm doing the things that I'm good at well, that it is good enough to compete.
Right.
So I think if I do that for the rest of the year, and like I said at the start of this year, I feel like my game's in a good spot, and I've made a bunch of cuts, but I've had a lot of nothing to. I finished I think 12th or something in Bogota, but other than that,
Yeah.
it's been a lot of 30, 40s. But I think that it's like if you just keep working on it, it's hard to just when it's like that. It's hard to just keep doing the same stuff. But I know that that stuff works, and I've had the privilege of that was the best thing last year. It's like I had probably one of the worst stretches I've had as a pro, and then I had like a really good stretch. So I was able at least to see what the good stretch looks like and know that it is good
Right.
enough to play at that level. And so if I can just stay on that path and keep working on the things that I'm good at, I think I'll get the results that I want.
Yeah. I mean, how do you define success? Is it a stat driven kind of thing, or, is it at the end of the day the most obvious one making it, or, giving it your all, like you mentioned at the end of the day? What does that look like for you, I guess, both in golf and in life?
Yeah, I need to be. I'm working on being a bit less like outcome oriented, and being a bit more like I said earlier, doing the things as well as I can do them, and then whatever happens, happens. It's so easy to say, so hard to do. But yeah, I've always said that, like, I think the I said it last year to someone on the KORN Ferry or in an interview last year. I think like the where you can get in pro golf is like the peak of where you can get, not the peak, but like a very good benchmark of like kind of you've made it is like I think it's less and less like getting your PGA Tour card, although how it's so important to get that. But if you can just be in every event, like
Yep.
your status is not um you're not checking to see if you're in this event or the next, but you're just in all the tournaments. You couldn't play a qualifier if you wanted to. You're just in
Hmm.
them. So that's kind of like a real goal is to get to that spot to whether that's making it to like East Lake or something like that. That's obviously, in the future. I got things I need to do before that, but that's kind of like, I think success and winning is like the most, um, it's the most, it's why we play. It's what you
Hmm.
want to do. So that is to be able to win. I won once. I mean, I've won mini tour events and stuff like that, but I've won one time in Latin America, and it's an incredible feeling. So you
Right.
chase that, and that's what keeps people playing and keeps people practicing. So being able to win and being able to kind of secure your status on the best tour in the world, I think is kind of what
Yeah.
is success. I would say for me.
Yeah. I guess, you mentioned trying to get to all that stuff, whether it be being a full-time guy where you don't have to Monday queue or, getting your card and making it to East Lake, becoming a household name within the golf community, if you will. I think something that's important, um, how do you prioritize like your mental well-being? I know that's kind of something we hit on earlier, but do you have any strategies that you've worked on with, whether it's reading a book or anybody who worked with whenever it comes to, just minor setbacks or stress in general? Like just from a mental
Yeah,
health standpoint, not necessarily
yeah,
like my golf game.
right. Yeah, I just think having things like um, be like very quiet or like set at home, like whether it's in your relationships or like with my fiance or my family, that being all good helps that a lot, obviously.
Hmm.
And then just any way that like I need to work on it even more, but like any way you can like quiet your mind, whether it's like not looking at your phone or just like just being okay with it being quiet
Right.
is something that like I need to work on more, but try to work on. And then it's just like I feel like even if I'm like just doing whatever around the house, I'm listening to a podcast or something, but it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, finding a
Right.
way to quiet your mind. And like I said, doing the cold plunge helps a ton
Yeah.
with that. And um, reading, that's something I
Yeah.
like started. I never thought I would read ever. I started doing it last year and like doing it and could be better about doing it more
Right.
often and prioritizing it. But yeah, those are kind of the main things for me. But I'm very fortunate to be like in a good mental state, and um, that's like a big part of what goes into playing good golf for sure.
Yeah. Amen. So, four more questions and we'll wrap it up. We're
All
gonna
good, man.
on a fun and more lighthearted topics. So, everybody has pet peeves. So, what's your, I guess, when it comes to playing or watching somebody's game, what's your biggest pet peeve?
Watching someone's game, I gotta be careful there.
Yeah.
I got pet peeves about my own game, but I'll just do a general pet peeve. I hate when people complain when they're in a divot.
Yeah. I
Like
think,
you hit it in a divot and it's like just complain. 95% of the time, people hit great shots. Like
yeah.
you get a little steeper, you drive it in there, and it like does kind of what you want it to, and they hit
Mhm.
good shots. And the whole argument of like you should get if you drive it down the fairway, you should get to take it. It's like all right. I mean, we're playing a game outside on a non-perfect surface. How about next time the ball's above my feet, let me just take it to a flat lie because I hit it in the fairway. You
Yeah.
know, it should be like a tee box. But that's one that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And I can complain with the best of them. I'll find things to complain about, but that's
Yeah.
one thing I won't complain about. And I played older guy. He's a senior now, but his name's Fran Quinn.
Yeah.
And we were playing a mini tour event. He was just trying to get ready for Champions Tour Q School. He was going to. He'd played on tour for a while, back in the day, and we were playing. We were like the third hole, and I got up there and I was in a divot, and I just like didn't say anything about it. He's like, "Man," he's like, "I'm surprised. Like, you know, most guys you play with on this tour will comment when they're in a
Yeah.
divot." He's telling me a story about he played with uh, Ricky Fowler at PGA National, the Honda, back in the day when Ricky was like fresh out.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know the 11th hole there.
Yeah.
It's a par four. You kind of hit like a 3 wood or something like just under 300 yards, and then you hit your second shot over a pond. It's a
Yeah.
tough hole, and they both hit it down the fairway, and they're walking up, and you can see one is like obviously in a divot, and it's like 8 in the morning. It's windy. It's kind of cold. And it's into the wind, so they're gonna have like 200 in.
Right.
It's gonna play like 220, and he gets up there, and his ball isn't in the divot. It's Fowler's in the divot, and he told me this. He's like, I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like he didn't even mention to his caddy that his ball was in the divot.
Right.
He just like they just talked about the shot and how far it was going to play. He grabbed like a hybrid or a 5 wood, and he like hit this like chop cut up on the green to like 20 feet. And he's like, since then, like I've always remembered that. And it's like I thought it was the coolest thing. Just unfazed, didn't complain about it, just got on
Yeah.
with it. So him telling me that story, like it made me kind of when you brought that up, kind of think about that. And
Yeah.
now I think because he told me that story, it bothers me even more when people complain about it. But
Right. Yeah. If the top
that's
guys in the world aren't, you shouldn't.
there's the top guys in the world are still complaining too.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah, I know.
but
I mean, anytime John
and
Rahm hits a bad bunker shot, it's because the previous guy didn't rake it well enough.
that's yeah, there's always something. And don't get me wrong, I'll find ways to complain about
Yeah,
other things with the best of them, but that's
yeah,
one that I'm take a stance on.
yeah. I think uh, speaking of memorable shots out of divots, I think it was David Toms that hit it at the Players at 18 and went on to win.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you never know when it can happen. And like you said,
exactly.
95% of the time, you're probably going to hit a
They,
good
they
shot.
always hit a fine shot,
Yeah.
anyways.
So.
Yeah.
I'd say my biggest pet peeve is hopefully you're not one of these guys. But if somebody hits a putt too hard or a chip too hard and they start snapping, so
Oh yeah,
yeah,
it
that's
is so brutal. I mean, if we start going, like I have a ton more. Just like even given like the person that like constantly needs to say, and I was probably like this when I first turned pro, but being around other guys, like they just constantly need to say something after your shot, or they'll give you like an all right. It's like, well, why even say that?
yeah.
Like, I
I
just hit a
think
wedge 25 feet. I know it won't kill me, but
right.
like, why even have a comment?
Unfortunately, I've turned into that guy because I'm a college coach and I'm trying to keep
Yeah,
a good perspective. And it's like I know I've definitely been in their shoes and
100%.
they don't want to hear this. So
Yeah.
it's like
My caddy will
shot.
do it every now and then. He just
Yeah,
like, just to say something. It's like, it's
yeah,
okay to not say anything. It's
yeah.
fine. We'll get on with it.
I think as coaches, we're like so sensitive to like somebody getting in a bad headspace. And it's like,
Yeah.
I was talking to one of my guys today and I was like, hey man, he's like, no, I'm good. Like, I swear I'm good.
Yeah. Don't
So he
worry about
knew
it.
I was about to say something and
Yeah.
cut that conversation short. So, all right. If you could play around with any celebrity, live, alive or dead, who would it be? And we'll throw athletes in there as well. How about Dream Foursome? Let's just make that.
Everyone puts their dad in it.
Yeah.
And just see, I don't know if he's making the cut.
All right, Pops.
Tiger, for sure. Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Um, shoot, Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think I used to be the biggest hater of Tom Brady, and as I've
Really?
gotten older,
Okay.
I just love him. And
Yeah.
just as a competitor, as an athlete, I think he's a cool guy. And it's fun to see somebody succeed and find out how they do it. And I think he's been very open and honest about how he's done it and what it takes. And I think it's cool
Yeah.
the stuff he provides for football and athletics. And yeah, huge fan of him.
He's a
Uh,
member at Sentinel, like down the road here, and people
yeah,
just say he's an awesome dude. Like he's
yeah.
just a great. So that's what, and that adds to it for sure for me.
Yeah, Sidney Crosby broke my heart. His Penguins beat my Nashville Preds in the Stanley Cup.
Uh,
So that was
that's
a
good.
little brutal. Are
Yeah.
you a big hockey fan?
I mean, I growing up like
Yeah.
huge hockey fan, and like Sidney Crosby when he scored the golden goal was 2012, I think, or
Hmm.
2010. That was like peak childhood for me.
Right.
So that like, and he's from where I'm from.
Right.
So um, I feel like it could happen. I could play with him. Like that seems feasible. He plays at the
Yeah.
course like I belong to back home, but he's very to himself. Like he's very private. Has a
Yeah.
different name at the club and stuff because he's so big.
Yeah.
Back where
Yeah, I
I'm
can
from.
imagine.
So maybe not, but
Did you
one
happen to
future.
see the Four Nations Cup with
Oh
Canada and
yeah,
USA? Dude, how
yeah.
awesome was that? I think that
I
was,
know it's so good for hockey too.
yeah.
Like people so into hockey. So yeah, and the thing is like we always beat the U.S. when like the game matters. Like even that year when we won the Olympics, like they
Yeah.
beat us in the round robin. But like those two teams, if they played 10 times, it'd be 5-5. Like they're
Yeah.
so equal.
Yeah.
So
It's like
yeah,
the
it's
Bills
it's
and the
gonna make the
Chiefs.
Olympics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
It's the exact same thing. Yeah,
yeah, I think the Olympics will be pretty cool to watch now
it'll be
whenever it
awesome
comes around. I think
for
you're just
sure.
gonna have a lot more people invested into it. So hopefully no more boos from you Canadians on our national anthem. How do you feel about the portrayal in golf movies, TV shows, commercials, etc.? Do you think it accurately represents the game of golf, or is there room for improvement?
Think like yeah, some of the like I like some of the commercials. They're pretty good.
Yeah.
Like movies, I can't think of like a golf movie recently. Like all the ones are like comedies that I can think of
Yeah.
offhand. Um, but the full swing stuff is pretty cool. I think.
Right.
Like even as a golfer, I wouldn't think that I would like it because I just feel like I know all the stuff. Like I don't
Right.
know these guys obviously, but I know a lot of the stuff. But I thought it's a pretty cool like inside look at it. All those docs that they do on Netflix are pretty awesome, where it goes like
Yeah.
deep into the sports. Um, yeah, I do. I think they do a good job. I think they're starting to do a better job, like in the media. Like they'll show like cut cams, and I don't know if it's just me that likes it. Um, like I wonder if like other people care about that sometimes. But like I love like even if I'm watching golf on a Friday, like like I know sometimes like when the waves doesn't work out and like the guys who are leading the tournament finish, Friday morning. Like I love to watch guys try to make a cut on
Yeah.
Friday afternoon. And
Yeah.
like they've started to lean into it a little bit more where they'll like show it more. And I do wonder sometimes if like the general like population or people who watch golf, are interested in that. And I think that's a cool thing that the PGA Tour could lean into,
Right.
that they have cuts and how
Yeah.
it matters and stuff like that. And I don't know if it's because I find myself on the cut line a lot and a lot more recently. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to watch how guys are going about it. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think, yeah, I'd say yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to give you perspective, my buddy Braden Thornberry, right? He had to win,
Yeah, I
but
know Braden.
solo
Yeah.
second. Yeah. So like I was so invested into that final round, like just watching everybody. Like I don't wasn't, you know, I didn't want them to do bad, but I was like, I want Braden to make it. And
I
it
know.
was,
It's great. I played with the final round at that tournament in French Lick, I played with Danny Walker, and we were in like, it was one of those things where me and the other guy I was playing with, like, we would have had to shoot 14 under to get our PGA Tour card. So it just like
Yeah.
wasn't going to happen. And we were far enough back where like we needed a really good finish to get our PGA Tour cards, and we were in like 30th or something
Hmm.
or 40th, and Danny was in 40th. But like every spot, he was like projected 29th, so like every spot mattered, and he just did not have it that day at all.
Yeah.
Um, and he made, I can tell you how many 15 footers he made for par, and he ended up getting, he made a 7. He hit one at a play, made a 7 on our third to last hole, and then he made like 2 unbelievable up and downs on the last 2 holes to shoot like 1 or 2 over, which is a really tough course.
Yeah.
Um, and he got up and down from the bunker on the last hole, and it was basically at the time for his PGA Tour card. And then he goes and he got his tour card obviously, and then goes and makes 850,000.
Yeah. Yeah. How
A couple
hard was
weeks.
that final round? It looked like the weather or the wind was blowing so hard.
I mean, that course is insane. It's so difficult.
Right.
Yeah, Braden I think shot 66 the last day
Yeah, but he
to
got out
win.
early. That was the thing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just not the course you want to play. And we're I've and a couple of guys said it that year, like, and it's always this way. You could be playing any course. Like, you want to have your card locked up before the last week, and it's never easy, and it's likely not going to happen. But it's just a hard course to have to play for your tour card.
Yeah.
Very difficult. That
Yeah.
finish is, there's no forgiveness to that
Yeah.
golf course.
Yeah, it seems like it because I can't tell you how many people like was there a par three like on those last three holes?
Yeah, 16. I mean,
Yeah.
it's this whole
I,
from the back tees, it's 300 yards. This
yeah.
par three. And the green is like, it'd be tough to hit with like a 9 iron.
Yeah.
And I mean, we played it at like 220, 230.
Hmm.
We never played it all the way back, but I mean, we were playing this course. We're playing like multiple holes. We're playing 3 tee boxes up, and I'm just thinking, then who's playing the back tees?
Yeah.
Like,
I think
we're
that's
playing a professional event at this
yeah.
course. Who's playing the tips?
I think it might be just some of those delusional guys that think they're way better than they are. You know, the
Yeah,
guy I was telling you about that was keeping track of his score in the
yeah,
pro am.
yeah.
So,
He's tipping it out,
yeah, he's setting a course record there.
no doubt, no doubt.
Awesome. So, last question, and we'll wrap this thing up. So, what's the funniest or most memorable moment you've experienced while in a golf cart between holes during a tournament, or just with your friends?
Funniest moment on a golf course.
No, golf cart. So, like
Golf
something,
cart.
flipping a cart whenever you were young, or getting it stuck, or doing whatever, having a weird
Oh, done
interaction with
that.
somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I remember flipping a cart. I'll tell you this story because it's better, and you'll like this story. But during COVID, um, I was caddying for a buddy of mine who lives down here in Jupiter. His name's Michael Gligic. He played 4 years on the PGA Tour. He's a Canadian guy. But during COVID, his caddy has type 1 diabetes. So he um, was just kind of seeing how things were shaking out when they first came back, because he's more susceptible if like he got COVID, that it could be more dangerous for him.
Hmm.
He had his caddy, Dave Markle, actually caddies for Nick Taylor now. But he was caddying for Michael at the time. So I filled in for 3 weeks, and I was playing in Latin or whatever at the time, but I wasn't playing because it was COVID, and those tours just weren't operating because they're out of the country. So I was like, he needed a caddy. I was like, I'll fill in.
Hmm.
So the first day, Thursday, first round I've caddied for him. I've done all the prep. I wrote way more in the book than I would ever write for myself. Like, I don't even write in my books
Yeah.
most of the time. You're not gonna like to hear that for your players, but our books are pretty good, and
Yeah.
I don't write them much. But
Well,
I've done a
I'm on
lot.
your side with that.
Yeah, there could be too much a lot of times, but I'd done all this work on it. So we get to like the fourth hole, and he missed a green, chipped it up to like a couple feet, tapped it in, and he's like, "I'm gonna go use the bathroom." He's like, "All right, yeah, I'll go too." So he went into like a station where they have on the course where it's like you walk in, lock the door. There's a porta potty next to it. So I go in the porta potty to use the bathroom, lift my bib up, book comes out of my bib, straight
Oh,
into the straight into. I'm surprised you haven't heard this story because this guy has told probably 10,000 people this
yeah,
story, but goes straight into the porta potty, and like I just didn't even think. My immediate reaction was to reach for it.
yeah.
I just went in
Oh,
there and grabbed it, and I got it, and it's blue, of course, like with the dye, so it's
yeah.
useless.
Oh,
I just throw it back in there. So he's like up on the tee now. They're probably all getting up on the tee. I like run out to where he was using the bathroom, go to wash my hands. I'm scrubbing my hands. They're literally just as blue as like
oh,
when they went in. Just won't come
oh,
off.
yeah,
So I walk out, and I had no book the rest of the round, and I had to caddy, and from here up, like as blue as you know, as blue as this, like literally that blue on my hands for like a week.
yeah.
My hands
Oh,
were that blue.
oh,
So I mean, the guys in the group were dying laughing and
yeah.
whatever.
Rightfully so.
So he's told. I mean, I can't tell you how many people this guy has told that story to, but
Yeah,
that's up with one of the funnier things that's happened.
yeah. Amen. I mean, did you have an excuse for why your hands were blue? Hopefully,
Nah,
telling people.
what do you do? You
I
just
mean,
gotta
yeah,
let them.
I don't know what to tell them. That's,
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
it
that
makes,
panic the panic I had when I'm scrubbing, and they're just not changing color
yeah,
at all.
yeah,
It's just like you can't believe it.
yeah. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah, yeah,
hopefully that doesn't happen again. And
yeah. Hopefully, I'm not caddying again.
yeah, amen. Amen. Well, hey, I appreciate you joining us, and I'm just gonna end the recording right now. But if you managed to stay this long and listen, I really appreciate it. I enjoyed having you on, Myles, and we look forward to getting some more guests on and continuing to grow this thing and provide some more insight to college and pro golf. Thanks, and have a great day.